Hey YouTube, Ed here with Jack of all trades and welcome to another video. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about my Yes Welder MP200. I've had it for 2 years now and I'm going to let you know how it's holding up and if I still like the machine as much as I did in my first review. So stay tuned and let's talk about this welder. And welcome back. So yes, as stated in the intro, we're going to talk about my Yes Welder MP200 and if I still like the machine. But as per the usual, I got to ask you, please go down and hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you get notified of upcoming videos and hit me with those comments. If you're liking what I do out here, just let me know in the comments. If there's something you want to see me do specifically, let me know so I can certainly try my best to get that done for you. And you're going to want to stay tuned and get those notifications because there are going to be some changes coming to the channel. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it right now until I've got all those changes figured out, but there will be some changes coming up to the channel in the very near future. The Yes Welder MP200. A full disclosure, Yes Welder sent me this machine 2 years ago and they asked me to do a review on it. And my initial review on it was favorable. I liked everything about the machine. The only thing that I hadn't tested, and I still haven't tested to this day, was the TIG function. And that's because I am just a flat out crappy TIG welder. I am not good at welding TIG. And I'm not going to sit here and make you think that I'm some kind of an expert TIG welder because I'm simply not. In fact, I've been out of the welding game so long now, I'm not even going to consider myself an expert welder anymore. I can weld well enough to get the job done and I can do some projects and I'm not worried about those welds breaking. But this welder is actually, I gave it a very favorable review in the beginning when I first got this thing. And like I said, full disclosure, Yes Welder sent it to me for review. Do I still like it? It's been almost 2 years to the day that this video was published that I've had this welder now. And the short answer to that question is yes, I am still very happy with the welder, although I have noticed some little quirks and some little idiosyncrasies that have happened with this machine over the course of time. They're not barn burners, but I'm going to explain those to you now. So over the last 2 years, you've seen me pull out this machine quite a few times, and I've used it to do quite a few projects. Some you've seen, some you haven't. I've done some projects that I didn't record or didn't do a video on because the time wasn't there and I couldn't do it. I've used this welder a lot. I've been through several spools of wire. I've been through many containers of 7525 gas. I've been through quite a few welding rods on this thing, and it is holding up really good. The plasma function works very well. I use the plasma cutter all the time, and I have no complaints about that. Now, what have I noticed about this welder that is one of the kind of quirky things, if you will? This is a dual voltage machine. It welds 110 and it welds 220, and it does weld 110 and 220. Although the 110, you can only get it up to, I believe, 160 amps, I think, on the MIG side. And then you can get it up to 200 amps if you're using 220 on the MIG side. With the plasma cutter, you can only get it up to 30 amps if you're using 110, and then you can get a full 40 amps if you're using 220. So one of the things that I have noticed is this machine cuts and welds exponentially better using the 220 circuit. It'll weld 110. It absolutely will. But what I have noticed is even if, let's just say, for instance, I'm welding at 150 amps on the 110 side, if I plug the welder into 220 and I'm still running that same 150 amps, the arc is quite a bit more stable. The overall function of the welder is a little better in 220 and the welds come out better. It seems like I get a little better penetration. The welds look better physically and in appearance aspects of it. The same with the plasma cutter and the stick welder. using the same parameters and using the same amperages, the machine does work better in 220. That's not to say it doesn't work in 110, because it absolutely does. I have done a lot of welding with this thing on 110. It really does work. It just welds and cuts better using 220. So that's one of the things that I've noticed. Now, that being said, the caveat to that is flux core. When I'm using flux core wire, it doesn't really seem to matter if I'm using 110 or 220. It welds about the same regardless using flux core wire. It really welds flux core very, very nicely. So overall, the machine is functioning as it is, but if I have the opportunity to plug it into a 220 outlet to make it weld, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do that consistently every time. I will weld on 110 if I have to, but the 220 is exponentially better. As far as any problems with the machine, I haven't had one single issue with this machine. And like I said, I've run a lot of wire through it. I've had to change out a liner once. That's normal. That's wear and tear. Liners wear out, liners plug up, and you just need to weld it or change them, especially if you're using flux core wire. They seem to get really dirty really, really fast. But as far as anything else, maintenance wise, or any problems or anything breaking with the machine, in 2 years, I have not had one single issue with this machine. One time, I did have the computer freeze up on me inside of it. It wouldn't let me push any buttons. It wouldn't do anything. I had to turn the machine off. I had to physically unplug the machine. I let it sit for 5 minutes. I went ahead and I plugged everything back in. Everything fired right back up again, and I was right back on the job. And that happened to me once. I was actually working on a trailer for a friend of mine, and the machine just locked up on me. I don't know if I had hit the duty cycle or what had happened, but I had to physically shut the whole thing down and restart it to get the computer to work back up. As far as the plasma cutter goes, it's only a 40 amp plasma cutter, but I use it all of the time in a job setting like I'm doing here at home. 40 amp plasma cutter is more than enough. I've never wished that I had 50, 55, or 60 amps in my plasma cutter. As a home DIYer, the 40 amp plasma cutter certainly cuts anything I need it to do, and it does it with extreme efficiency. The last time I used the plasma cutter, I used it when I made my my cowboy walker, my Discata, which was a video I just did a couple of weeks ago. You can go ahead and take a look at that. I had to plasma cut the hole, or the slug to fill the hole. Worked really, really well. Was very happy with it. Again, I had my plasma cutter and plugged into 220, and it worked exceedingly well. It was really, and those discs, those cultivator discs, are hardened steel, and they're very hard to cut because of that. And the plasma cutter just went right through it and did exactly what it needed to do. Very, very happy with the overall performance of the plasma cutter. Stick welding, I haven't run a whole bunch of rods through it. I've run a few 70 series rods, 7018s and the like, and I've run a few 60 series rods through it. I've probably got 3, maybe 4 pounds of rods through the machine. I have no complaints the way this thing stick welds. It does just exactly what it's supposed to do. It's very, very portable. I can run it off of an inverter generator, so that makes it even more portable if I don't have power where I'm going. If that inverter generator happens to have a 220 outlet on it, it's even better. But most of the time, I just run it off the 110, and it does exactly what I need it to do. Some of the things that I was mildly concerned about was the ground clamp. It's pretty light duty construction, but you know what? In 2 years, I've had no problems with it. The only problem I've had with the ground clamp is the nut loosened up on me. Well, that's not the ground clamp's fault. It's just general maintenance. I had to grab a wrench and I had to tighten it back up. But the ground clamp has been very, very adequate, and I have not felt the need to replace it. So very happy with the way that works. The regulator for the plasma cutter has given me no problems whatsoever. It seems to work very, very well. It does the water separation feature just like it's supposed to. I've used the plasma cutter on some pretty humid days, and my air compressor was pumping some pretty wet water through it, and it did a very, very good job of filtering that water out just like it's supposed to. I have no complaints in that respect at all. If I have to make a gripe, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to convert this thing over from hardwire and gas to flux core, because you do have to change over this bus terminal inside from electrode positive to electrode negative when you're doing flux core wire. It's a little bit of a pain, but it's not such a big deal that I really have to worry about it. It would be kind of nice if the machine was smart enough to realize that when I've got the ground clamp stuck in the other socket that it would need to change its polarity on its own. It just doesn't do that, and that's really not the end of the world. This is a nice, easy way to do it. It's just you got to have a screwdriver. You got to be able to loosen the nut up and the bolt, and flip that bus bar over so that you can make it weld flux core wire. But overall, I've been very, very happy with this. I've welded some pretty rusty material. I've welded through some pretty scaly material. I've even welded some material that has had several coats of paint on it that I didn't have a grinder with me and I just couldn't get the paint off. So I said, to hell with it. And I just burned through it, and it burned through it just fine. So the machine does exceedingly well for the money. It's a 5-in-1 machine. It will plasma cut. It will MIG weld with gas. It'll flux core weld. It'll stick weld, and it'll TIG weld. Again, I have not used the TIG welding function on it. It's a scratch start TIG. It doesn't have a pedal, and I'm such a crappy TIG welder that I haven't used it. Maybe if I had a machine that had the high frequency start, I might try to TIG weld a little more with it, but I just haven't felt the need to do it. Most of the welding I do does not require TIG. I don't have to. This way, I don't have to have a separate bottle of argon laying around for the TIG welding function, and the MIG welding does exactly what I need it to do. So at the end of the day, would I buy the M&P200? Yeah, I really have no problem saying that. And I'm not saying that because Yes Welder sent this to me. You know me well enough to know that if it sucks, I'm going to tell you it sucks. If it's good, I'm going to tell you if it's good. If it's good and it's got a few things here and there, I'm going to tell you that as well. I have no allegiance to these people whatsoever. They don't pay me to do this or anything like that. They sent me a machine. I said, sure, I'll try it out. I like this machine well enough where I actually took my titanium welder and it has been repurposed to somebody else, and they're still using it to this day, and they like that titanium welder just fine. But I liked this machine well enough where I was actually able to get rid of my titanium welder, and I was able to get rid of my Yes Welder DS55 plasma cutter, which they also sent me and I also liked, and just replace both those units with this single unit, and I'm very happy for it. So with that, let's go ahead and let's just wrap this video up. Nice short little video this week. If you're liking this kind of content, and if you appreciate these kinds of videos, please let me know in those comments down below. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help the channel out, and it's the only way I ever ask you for support or money. I really do appreciate all my longtime subscribers. I really do appreciate all the people that follow this channel. I love you guys all, and you're the reason I do this. I'm not out here getting rich. I do this for the fun of it and because I enjoy it. With that, this is Ed from Jack of All Trades. Thank you for stopping by, and we will see you on the next video.